Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about the launch of a new bike which is version 3 of the Beady Little I. The Beady Little I is quite a special bike. It is a single speed full suspension bike. Not many people make them. We've been making this bike for quite a long time, and it's just really good fun bike. The suspension configuration is designed so that as the suspension moves, the chain doesn't change length, which means you can run it single speed. We've got some tensioners, some adjusters on the dropouts to allow us to do that. So what's the point of a single speed full suspension bike? I've always ridden single speed. Around our local trails in Bristol, the hills aren't massive. There are hills there, but single speed is just the most engaging thing. You stamp on the pedals, the bike goes. A lot of it is you're not thinking about gears. You don't even think about them. You just think about pedaling. So it's such a fun, exciting way to ride. So for years I rode hardtail single speed bikes. But when I started making bikes, it was in fact one of the first bikes I made. The first full suspension bike I made was a single speed full suspension bike. Why are we at version 3? So I did some early ones when I was in my shed. We've actually been selling these bikes for a long time. We've never really promoted them. They've always just been sat on the website, available to buy, but we've never done any promotion. Gradually, as time's gone on, the design has evolved, and we've now got to really what we're thinking is like a version 3 where we're bringing it up to date with the other Starling frames. We made some changes to make it consistent with like the V3 core bikes, the Murmurs and the Twists. So we've got the swoopy head tube gusset, which we've got on the new bikes. We do have the machine shock mount that we've got on the other bikes, but in this case, it's only one position. This prototype has got a multi-position, but the production bikes have got some plates that mean you're only allowed one position, and there's only one travel option on this bike, which is 90 millimeters of rear travel. The 90mm rear is paired with, say, a 120, 130mm fork. Version 3, we've got rid of the seat post binder, the integrated seat post binder, so you now have an aluminium one. We have the aluminium shim in the seat post, so your seat post doesn't get seized in. What other three things? A stronger head tube. But really, the main changes we're making for V3 of this bike are to do with the main pivot. So the version 2 of the main pivot and all the previous Beady Little I bikes you had to use specific cranks. So you had to run a specific, either a profile or middle burn crankset. And the way the bike worked is the axle, the bearings for the swing arm and the bearings for the bottom bracket all ran on the same axle. And this kind of worked fine. But we had some slight issues with under load. You can imagine that crank axle deforms and bends a little bit, and it was leading to relatively premature bearing wear. So we've now got a new system where we have a standard bottom bracket, but we've reduced the width by 7mm on each side because that's the width of the bearings. And then we actually have this is a custom bottom bracket shell that we've had made, which has a shoulder on the inside of the thread that the bearing pushes into. So this bearing, it needs a gentle push. I won't be able to, push in the vise, won't be able to do it, but that bearing will push onto that shoulder, and then this whole assembly screws into the bottom bracket shell. Is this reverse thread, this one? And if I screwed that up, it would pull the bearing all the way in tight. So that bearing is spinning on that axle and is a very nice stiff interface. And then you just have a normal bearing on the outside that the cranks run on, and that is just a standard bearing that you can buy from anywhere. So you don't need to replace the whole bottom bracket shell, you just replace that bearing. This new bearing configuration is super stiff. It also means you can run normal 24mm cranks, so any Shimano cranks, these middle burns, there's lots of 24mm cranks out there. So you don't need a specific crankset. Anything that runs on 73mm bottom bracket will work. The only other changes we made to the V3 are the eccentric dropout system we've now got, it previously had a glued in M6 bolt for adjustment. It's now got an M8 or an 8mm Allen key fixment. So you can micro adjust the position of it with an M8 Allen key, or an 8mm Allen key, which makes it a bit easier to do. So what's the Beady Little I? The Beady Little I is a single speed full suspension bike. It has 90mm of rear travel. We run a 120 or 30mm fork, and it's a slightly odd design because it's single speed. The swing arm is pivoting about the centre of the cranks, which actually means your chain line is offset from the pivot. So as you would pedal, you would get a moment, you would get bobbing would happen. This bike would bob terribly if you just ran it with sag. So what you have to do is you actually have to run this bike with a really firm suspension. So you actually run 0 sag. And that means you stop the bobbing. It's a nice firm pedaling interface. And as you pedal, this thing flies. It just gains speed. But if you hit a big hit, so you hit a bump, you go off a drop, you go into a big compression, that's the point the suspension moves. So it's not like a traditional full suspension bike that sits at 20%, 30% in its sag and is always moving. This is rigid until something happens. People are going to go, well, it's rubbish, it's crap, it's not going to ride. You need sag for it to run. It's a full suspension bike. You're going to get a whole load of comments, but they haven't ridden this bike. If they have ridden this bike, they will tell you it is the most fun thing out there. It's like a hardtail. You've got the engagement and the positivity and the acceleration of a hardtail, and even more acceleration because your rear wheel is super light without the cassette on it. But it just gives when you need it to. So you go off a drop and it's a nice soft landing. You even pushing into corners, it just gives a little bit. Even hitting a big hit, it moves. So it's like a hardtail with give when you need it. People won't understand it until they've ridden it, and then they ride it and they love it. And we've got, I know, quite a few customers of these bikes out there. Everybody, without exception, absolutely loves it, just finds it the most exciting, engaging bike. I ride this bike more than anything, and in terms of just enjoying riding a bike, this is the bike I enjoy riding more than anything, more than great big long travel enduro bikes. You know, it's just so much fun. It's just makes you feel alive. It's brilliant. It sounds a bit corny, but it really does. Yeah, the other aspect of running 0 sag is that you actually have a hardtail bottom bracket height. So typically full suspension bikes have slightly higher bottom brackets so that they sag into it. This runs a hardtail bottom bracket height. And so it's a low bottom bracket, which even though it's running 0 sag is low, and it just makes the bike corner so well. So it's kind of built like a hardtail. The build is a hardtail. You run a hardtail, a 120, 130 fork like you would on a hardtail. So yeah, that's it. New version 3. This is going to be a rare bike. So because they're a different design, because we get the swing arms made we actually use a UK frame builder to get the rear swing arms made. But we do it in small batches, and we need to know like how many 29s, how many 27s are we going to do. I'll talk about that in a minute. But these, we're going to do a batch soon. So that batch will be available. I think we're going to have like a month slot when you can order a bike, and then we'll deliver within 12 weeks. If you miss this slot, it's unlikely we'll do another batch for a year. So this is your chance to get one of these bikes, and it is the most fun bike. It'll be available in medium, large, extra large, XXL, I'm not sure about XXL, I'll have to look at that. In any wheel configuration, so we can do 27 front and rear, 29 front and rear, 29, 27 mullet. We can do all those configurations. We've got the data for all of those. Yeah, that's it really. I suppose the only other thing to say, because the suspension runs 0 sag, you only need a really basic shock. This is just a RockShox Deluxe and one of their lower models. It doesn't do anything clever, the shock, it just moves when you hit stuff, so you just need a basic low-level shock. It's quite good to have relatively firm compression on it, tuning on it, but it doesn't matter that much. It's just not an issue. You just need to run the rebound, because it's run at such a high pressure, you run the rebound quite slow, because it's, as you blow through the travel, you want it to come back gently. I've got mine built as a cross-country type bike. I've got really lightweight wheels, really fast rolling tyres, but these are pretty good in the mud, so they're cross-country tyres. I've also got cush coring, because I can't imagine not having cush coring things. It means I can hit rocks hard on these cross-country tyres. Everything else is kind of a cross-country build, some tie bars, I've got cross-country brakes. But other people have built them in loads of ways. We've got a customer who's actually riding one all the way around America. Where's he riding it? He's doing a bike packing trip on one of these bikes on a single speed, and he loves it because he knows there's nothing to go wrong. We've got customers who have built them as slopestyle bikes. We've got customers built them at park bikes. We've got customers, use them in all different ways. It's, anything you can do on a single speed hardtail, you can do better on this and more fun on this. Let's just move. Shall I move that box? Is that in the way? Doesn't matter. Can you see up there? So this wall here, we're in the process of putting up all the historic bikes actually in the box behind Jamie. Don't know if he just wants to show the box of old bikes we need to put up on the wall. So they're all going to make her up here. So this was the first bike I ever made which was somebody else's swing arm, a Cannondale Profit swing arm. The second bike I ever made was actually, and the second full suspension, or which was the first full suspension bike, was this Beady Little Eye. So this is the first ever Beady Little Eye that I made in my shed with sort of sliding dropouts and all this kind of stuff I fabricated, the dropouts, all the swing arms and stuff. It did snap, so it's got a bit of a dodgy tube joining the seat post, 27.2mm seat post. But that, I rode that for a couple of years. Really good fun bike, and that sort of sowed the seed for the Beady Little Eye. Just down here, I don't know where the best place to stand. Should I stand out here? So this is probably the second or third Beady Little Eye I made. This is one of my frames. This is when we were making lots of murmurs, so lots of the parts crossed over, like the shock mounts, and we were getting bits made in Taiwan at that point. But this, I rode this bike loads. This actually featured in a pink bike thing years ago. Was a raw bike before it got painted purple, and for some reason the image was really good and people loved it, and it did, people loved it at that point. And then, so this was probably what we call version 1. We sold quite a lot of this version. Version 2 went to a different bearing arrangement, and this ran profile cranks. Version 2's tended to run middle burn cranks, and now we're moving on to version 3, but it's nice, isn't it? So we're going to do the Beady Little Eye. We've got a new colour for it, which we're calling, we're not calling it bark, no. So we've got a new colour for the Beady Little Eye, which we're going to call Steel is Teal, which I think is very nice and for good colour. Invented by Jamie, which is good. So like a dark teal colour, but it looks lovely actually. It's a really nice colour. Initially only available for this Beady Little Eye, so there you go. Right, go. I'm going at my pace. So a couple of weeks back, Starling went to Single Speed UK, which is an annual race, all single speeders. This year it was actually run by John, who's designer that's worked with Starling, designed our logos. But just a really good fun event. I think there's like 130, 140 people racing. Funnily, racing around a bloody great big hill in the Quantox, pedaling our single speeds up this bloody great big hill, a 3-hour race up a big hill. But a really good fun event. The race was really hard. Like, I haven't done that level of exercise for a long time. Getting up the hill was just the hardest thing, but it's a really good fun single track, a really good fun blast through a field at the end, like 40 miles an hour down this hill in a full tuck. And then, because it's Single Speed UK, every lap you have to have a little glass of beer. I think quite a few people just ended up stopping at the beer tent. We supplied the beer, thanks to More Beer, who supplied some beer for us to give to that. But just a really good fun event. Anyone who's a single speeder, I'd thoroughly recommend going. I think it's somewhere else next year. And I did okay. I think I was 16th place. And if I'd kept going, I kind of did 5 laps. I could have easily got 6 lap in, but I just kind of stopped. I was hoping I was going to beat John Summerhill, who was one of our customers who was racing. He was a little bit behind me, and he went past, like with less than half an hour to go, to get one final lap in to beat me, and he came in with about 10 seconds to spare. And if he hadn't come in with those 10 seconds, I would have beaten him. But he did. So I was a bit, but well done to him. He did pretty well. But really good fun event. There you go. I've told you all about the Beady Little Eye. It really is the most fun bike ever. Go onto the website, find out about it, put an order in if you're keen to get into single speed, or if you're a single speed rider. Have a look at our YouTube channel as well, lots of interesting stuff on there. And that's it, goodbye. I'm not saying like and subscribe, refuse to. No brakes! Ah.